الله المستعان. الحمد لله.
ويزوجهم.
آمين.
إن شاء الله. الشيخ عقيل يرى لنا بنت
عروس.
أيوة إن شاء الله.
عروس شقراء طيبة
بإذن الله.
أنا عندي لك شقراء من غانا.
لا غانا ويني، احنا نبغى نكون قريب من الشباب.
إذا سأعطيها لأحمد.
بسم الله. we're live boys. we're live.
يلا أوكي. يلا بسم الله. تفضل يا أحمد. بسم الله.
بسم الله.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. كافها يا عين صاد. ذكر رحمة ربك عبده زكريا.
I seek refuge with Allah from Satan the outcast. Kaf ha ya ayn sad. These are letters of the miracles of the Quran, and none but Allah alone knows their meanings. This is a mention of the mercy of your Lord to his slave Zachariah.
إذ نادى ربه نداء خفيا قال رب إني وهن العظم مني واشتعل الرأس شيبا ولم أكن بدعائك رب شقيا وإني خفت الموالي من ورائي وكانت امرأتي عاقرا فهب لي من لدنك وليا يرثني ويرث من آل يعقوب واجعله رب رضيا.
When he called out to his Lord Allah, a call in secret, he said, My Lord, indeed my bones have grown feeble, and grey hair has spread on my head, and I have never been unblessed in my invocation to you, O my Lord. And verily, I fear my relatives after me, and my wife is barren. So give me from yourself an heir, who shall inherit me, and also inherit the posterity of Jacob, and make him, my Lord, one with whom you are well pleased.
يا زكريا إنا نبشرك بغلام اسمه يحيى لم نجعل له من قبل سميا.
Allah said, O Zachariah, verily we give you the glad tidings of a son, whose name will be John, and we have given that name to none before him.
قال كذلك قال ربك هو علي هين وقد خلقتك من قبل ولم تك شيئا.
He said, My Lord, how can I have a son when my wife is barren and I have reached the extreme old age? He said, So it will be, your Lord says, it is easy for me. Certainly I have created you before when you had been nothing.
قال رب اجعل لي آية قال آيتك ألا تكلم الناس 3 ليال سويا فخرج على قومه من المحراب فأوحى إليهم أن سبحوا بكرة وعشيا.
Zachariah said, My Lord, appoint for me a sign. He said, Your sign is that you shall not speak unto mankind for 3 nights, though having no bodily defect. Then he came out to his people from his praying place, and he told them by signs to glorify Allah's praises in the morning and in the afternoon.
يا يحيى خذ الكتاب بقوة وآتيناه الحكم صبيا وحنانا من لدنا وزكاة وكان تقيا وبرا بوالديه ولم يكن جبارا عصيا وسلام عليه يوم ولد ويوم يموت ويوم يبعث حيا.
It was said to his son, O John, hold fast the scripture, the Torah, and we gave him wisdom while yet a child, and made him sympathetic to men as a mercy or a grant from us, and pure from sins. And he was righteous, and dutiful towards his parents, and he was neither arrogant nor disobedient to Allah or his parents.
واذكر في الكتاب مريم إذ انتبذت من أهلها مكانا شرقيا فاتخذت من دونهم حجابا فأرسلنا إليها روحنا فتمثل لها بشرا سويا.
And peace be on him the day he was born, and the day he dies, and the day he will be raised up to life again. And mention in the book Mary, when she withdrew in seclusion from her family to a place facing east. She placed a screen to screen herself from them. Then we sent to her our angel Gabriel, and he appeared before her in the form of a man in all respects.
قالت إني أعوذ بالرحمن منك إن كنت تقيا قال إنما أنا رسول ربك لأهب لك غلاما زكيا قالت أنى يكون لي غلام ولم يمسسني بشر ولم أك بغيا قال كذلك قال ربك هو علي هين ولنجعله آية للناس ورحمة منا وكان أمرا مقضيا.
She said, Verily, I seek refuge with the Most Gracious from you, if you do fear Allah. The angel said, I am only a messenger from your Lord, to announce to you the gift of a righteous son. She said, How can I have a son, when no man has touched me, nor am I unchaste? He said, So it will be. Your Lord said, That is easy for me. And we wish to appoint him as a sign to mankind, and as a mercy from us, and it is a matter already decreed by Allah.
فحملته فانتبذت به مكانا قصيا فأجاءها المخاض إلى جذع النخلة قالت يا ليتني مت قبل هذا وكنت نسيا منسيا فناداها من تحتها ألا تحزني قد جعل ربك تحتك سريا وهزي إليك بجذع النخلة تساقط عليك رطبا جنيا فكلي واشربي وقري عينا فإما ترين من البشر أحدا فقولي إني نذرت للرحمن صوما فلن أكلم اليوم إنسيا.
So she conceived him, and she withdrew with him to a far place. And the pains of childbirth drove her to the trunk of a date palm. She said, "Would that I had died before this, and had been forgotten and out of sight." Then the babe, Jesus, or Gabriel, cried unto her from below, saying, "Grieve not, your Lord has provided a water stream under you, and shake the trunk of date palm towards you. It will let fall fresh ripe dates upon you. So eat and drink and be glad. And if you see any human being, say, Verily, I have vowed a fast unto the most gracious, so I shall not speak to any human being this day."
فأتت به قومها تحمله قالوا يا مريم لقد جئت شيئا فريا يا أخت هارون ما كان أبوك امرأ سوء وما كانت أمك بغيا فأشارت إليه قالوا كيف نكلم من كان في المهد صبيا قال إني عبد الله آتاني الكتاب وجعلني نبيا وجعلني مباركا أينما كنت وأوصاني بالصلاة والزكاة ما دمت حيا وبرا بوالدتي ولم يجعلني جبارا شقيا والسلام علي يوم ولدت ويوم أموت ويوم أبعث حيا.
Then she brought him the baby to her people, carrying him. They said, "O Mary, indeed you have brought a mighty thing. O sister of Harun, your father was not a man who used to commit adultery, nor your mother was an unchaste woman." Then she pointed to him. They said, "How can we talk to one who is a child in the cradle?" He, Jesus, said, "Verily, I am a slave of Allah. He has given me the scripture and made me a prophet. And he has made me blessed wherever I be, and has enjoined on me prayer and charity as long as I live, and dutiful to my mother, and made me not arrogant, unblessed. And peace be upon me the day I was born, and the day I die, and the day I shall be raised alive."
ذلك عيسى ابن مريم قول الحق الذي فيه يمترون ما كان لله أن يتخذ من ولد سبحانه إذا قضى أمرا فإنما يقول له كن فيكون وإن الله ربي وربكم فاعبدوه هذا صراط مستقيم.
Such is Jesus, son of Mary. It is a statement of truth about which they doubt. It befits not the majesty of Allah that he should beget a son. Glorified and exalted is he above all that they associate him with. When he decrees a thing, he only says to it, be, and it is. Jesus said, and verily Allah is my Lord and your Lord, so worship him alone. That is the straight path.
فاختلف الأحزاب من بينهم فويل للذين كفروا من مشهد يوم عظيم أسمع بهم وأبصر يوم يأتوننا لكن الظالمون اليوم في ضلال مبين.
Then the sects differed from the meeting of a great day. How clearly will they, the polytheists and disbelievers in the oneness of Allah, see and hear the day when they will appear before us. But the polytheists and wrongdoers today are in plain error. And warn them, O Muhammad, of the day of grief and regrets, when the case has been decided, while now they are in a state of carelessness, and they believe not.
وأنذرهم يوم الحسرة إذ قضي الأمر وهم في غفلة وهم لا يؤمنون إنا نحن نرث الأرض ومن عليها وإلينا يرجعون.
And warn them, O Muhammad, of the day of grief and regrets, when the case has been decided, while now they are in a state of carelessness, and they believe not. Verily we will inherit the earth and whatever is thereon, and to us they shall all be returned.
واذكر في الكتاب إبراهيم إنه كان صديقا نبيا إذ قال لأبيه يا أبت لم تعبد ما لا يسمع ولا يبصر ولا يغني عنك شيئا يا أبت إني قد جاءني من العلم ما لم يأتك فاتبعني أهدك صراطا سويا يا أبت لا تعبد الشيطان إن الشيطان كان للرحمن عصيا يا أبت إني أخاف أن يمسك عذاب من الرحمن فتكون للشيطان وليا.
And mention in the book, the Quran, Abraham. Verily, he was a man of truth, a prophet, when he said to his father, O my father, why do you worship that which hears not, sees not, and cannot avail you in anything? O my father, verily there has come to me of the knowledge that which has not come to you. So follow me, I will guide you to the straight path. O my father, worship not Satan. Verily Satan has been a rebel against the Most Gracious. O my father, verily I fear lest a torment from the Most Gracious should overtake you, so that you become a companion of Satan in the hellfire.
قال أراغب أنت عن آلهتي يا إبراهيم لئن لم تنته لأرجمنك واهجرني مليا قال سلام عليك سأستغفر لك ربي إنه كان بي حفيا وأعتزلكم وما تدعون من دون الله وأدعو ربي عسى ألا أكون بدعاء ربي شقيا.
He, the father, said, Do you reject my gods, O Abraham? If you stop not this, I will indeed stone you. So get away from me safely before I punish you. Abraham said, Peace be upon you. I will ask forgiveness of my Lord for you. Verily he is unto me ever most gracious. And I shall turn away from you and those whom you invoke besides Allah. And I shall call upon my Lord, and I hope I shall not be unblessed in my invocation to my Lord.
فلما اعتزلهم وما يعبدون من دون الله وهبنا له إسحاق ويعقوب وكلا جعلنا نبيا ووهبنا لهم من رحمتنا وجعلنا لهم لسان صدق عليا.
So when he had turned away from them and from those whom they worship besides Allah, we gave him Isaac and Jacob, and each one of them we made a prophet. And we gave them of our mercy a good provision in plenty, and we granted them honor on the tongues of all nations.
واذكر في الكتاب موسى إنه كان مخلصا وكان رسولا نبيا وناديناه من جانب الطور الأيمن وقربناه نجيا ووهبنا له من رحمتنا أخاه هارون نبيا.
And mention in the book, this Quran, Moses. Verily he was chosen, and he was a messenger and a prophet. And we called him from the right side of the mount, and made him draw near to us for a talk with him. And we granted him his brother Aaron, also a prophet, out of our mercy.
واذكر في الكتاب إسماعيل إنه كان صادق الوعد وكان رسولا نبيا وكان يأمر أهله بالصلاة والزكاة وكان عند ربه مرضيا.
And mention in the book Ishmael. Verily he was true to what he promised, and he was a messenger and a prophet. And he used to enjoin on his family and his people the prayers and the charity, and his Lord was pleased with him. And
واذكر في الكتاب إدريس إنه كان صديقا نبيا ورفعناه مكانا عليا.
and mention in the book Idris. Verily he was a man of truth and a prophet, and we raised him to a high station.
أولئك الذين أنعم الله عليهم من النبيين من ذرية آدم ومن حملنا مع نوح ومن ذرية إبراهيم وإسرائيل وممن هدينا واجتبينا إذا تتلى عليهم آيات الرحمن خروا سجدا وبكيا.
Those were they unto whom Allah bestowed His grace from among the prophets, of the offspring of Adam, and of those whom we carried in the ship with Noah, and of the offspring of Abraham and Israel, and from among those whom we guided and chose. When the verses of the Most Gracious were recited unto them, they fell down prostrate and weeping.
فخلف من بعدهم خلف أضاعوا الصلاة واتبعوا الشهوات فسوف يلقون غيا إلا من تاب وآمن وعمل صالحا فأولئك يدخلون الجنة ولا يظلمون شيئا جنات عدن التي وعد الرحمن عباده بالغيب إنه كان وعده مأتيا لا يسمعون فيها لغوا إلا سلاما ولهم رزقهم فيها بكرة وعشيا تلك الجنة التي نورث من عبادنا من كان تقيا وما نتنزل إلا بأمر ربك له ما بين أيدينا وما خلفنا وما بين ذلك وما كان ربك نسيا.
And there has succeeded them a posterity who have given up the prayers and have followed lusts, so they will be thrown in hell, except those who repent and believe in the oneness of Allah and work righteousness. Such will enter paradise, and they will not be wronged in aught. They will enter Eden, paradise, with which the Most Gracious has promised to His slaves in the unseen. Verily, His promise must come to pass. They shall not hear therein in paradise any dirty, false, evil, vain talk, but only salutations of peace, and they will have therein their sustenance morning and afternoon. Such is the paradise which we shall give as an inheritance to those of our slaves who have been the pious.
رب السماوات والأرض وما بينهما فاعبده واصطبر لعبادته هل تعلم له سميا.
And we angels descend not except by the command of your Lord. To Him belongs what is before us and what is behind us, and what is between those two. And your Lord is never forgetful, Lord of the heavens and the earth, and all that is between them. So worship Him alone, and be constant and patient in His worship. Do you know of any who is similar to Him?
ويقول الإنسان أإذا ما مت لسوف أخرج حيا أولا يذكر الإنسان أنا خلقناه من قبل ولم يك شيئا فوربك لنحشرنهم والشياطين ثم لنحضرنهم حول جهنم جثيا ثم لننزعن من كل شيعة أيهم أشد على الرحمن عتيا ثم لنحن أعلم بالذين هم أولى بها صليا وإن منكم إلا واردها كان على ربك حتما مقضيا.
And man, the disbeliever, says, when I am dead, shall I then be raised up alive? Does not man remember that we created him before while he was nothing? So by your Lord, surely we shall gather them together, and also the devils with them. Then we shall bring them round hell on their knees. And indeed we shall drag out from every sect all those who were worst in obstinate rebellion against the Most Gracious. Then verily we know best those who are most worthy of being burnt therein. There is not one of you but will pass over it. This is with your Lord a decree which must be accomplished.
ثم ننجي الذين
السلام
اتقوا
عليكم.
ونذر الظالمين فيها جثيا.
Then we shall save those who used to fear
هذا
Allah
سؤال.
and were dutiful to Him. And we shall leave the polytheists and wrongdoers therein humbled to their knees.
جزاك الله خير شيخ أحمد على القراءة الماتعة والآيات المفيدة والعظيمة
حياك شيخ.
هذه القصة الجميلة. جزاكم الله خير شيخ زكي، شيخ عقيل، وكذلك توم. طيب إن شاء الله نبدأ الآن موضوع الدرس، وهو في صلاة العيد في زمن الكورونا.
So our Shaykh thanked those who participated and made the recitation, and then he said we will now go on to our lecture for the evening, which is the methodology in performing the Eid prayer in light of the corona situation.
أولا نقول الحمد لله الذي أتم علينا نعمة الإسلام ونعمة الصيام والقيام.
And first of all, we say all praises are due to Allah alone, who has given us the blessing of Islam, and He has given us the blessing of having completed this month in fasting as much as we have done so, and for having prayed during this month.
ونسأله عز وجل أن يتم علينا ما بقي من رمضان، وأن يجعل حظنا فيه أعظم حظ وأوفر نصيب.
And we ask Him to complete His favors upon us by giving us success to complete the rest of the month, and we ask Him to make that which is coming for us better than that which has preceded.
ونسأله عز وجل أن يبلغنا العيد ونحن في أتم صحة وأوفر عافية.
And we ask Him to grant us success to meet the day of Eid in a state in which we are healthy.
وللعيد أحكام يجب على المسلم تعلمها.
And Eid, the day of Eid, it has certain rulings that pertain to it that are obligatory for the Muslim to be aware of.
وللعيد آداب يجب على المسلم أن يتمثلها.
And it also has customs and practices that the Muslim should adhere to and abide by.
ومن آداب العيد أن يتجمل الإنسان يوم العيد بأحسن ما عنده من لباس بعد الاغتسال، وأن يتطيب بأحسن الطيب عنده.
And from the customs on the day of Eid, or from the customs, from the actions that should be done, is that an individual should beautify themselves by wearing the best clothes that they have, following having a bath, and putting the best fragrance that they have on.
ومن آداب المسلم في العيد أن يظهر الفرح والسرور والبهجة.
And also from the customs of Eid is that an individual shows their happiness on this day.
ومن أحكام العيد ومن أحكام صلاة العيد ما يكون من غروب شمس آخر يوم من رمضان.
And the rulings that pertain to Eid and that which pertain to the Eid prayer, these come into effect from the setting of the sun on the previous day. So on the last day of Ramadan, the setting of the sun.
كما قال الله عز وجل ولتكملوا العدة ولتكبروا الله على ما هداكم ولعلكم تشكرون.
And this is as Allah said in the Quran, what means such that you complete the period, وَلِتُكْمِلُوا الْعِدَّةَ وَلِتُكَبِّرُوا اللَّهَ عَلَى مَا هَدَاكُمْ, and that you declare Allah great due to that which He has guided you to.
فبمجرد أن تغرب شمس آخر يوم من رمضان يشرع المسلمون في التكبير المطلق، يعني من غروب الشمس إلى صلاة العيد في كل الوقت وفي كل مكان، يكبرون ويرفعون بذلك أصواتهم قائلين الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر الله أكبر ولله الحمد.
And as soon as the sun goes down and it sets on the last day of Ramadan, then it's legislated for the Muslims to make the takbir, the glorifying or the stating the greatness of Allah, and this is what's known as the glorifying of Allah or the making great of Allah in an unrestricted sense. And this is what takes place from the setting of the sun on the last day of Ramadan until the Salat al-Eid, until the Eid prayer. And it's something that the individual can do in any place where they are, raising their voices, declaring the greatness of Allah in the following manner: Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, walillahi alhamd. Meaning, Allah is the greatest, Allah is the greatest, Allah is the greatest. There is no deity worthy of worship in truth except for Allah. Allah is the greatest, Allah is the greatest, and to Allah all praises are due.
وهذه الليلة لا يحييها المسلم بقيام طويل، وإنما يصلي العشاء ويصلي صلاة الليل بشيء يعني مختصر، ثم يوتر وينام حتى يستعد لصلاة الفجر وصلاة العيد، ويكون يوم العيد فرحا مبتهجا نشيطا قويا يؤدي ما عليه من أعمال.
And on the night of Eid, so when the sun has set on the last day of Ramadan, this night, it's not a night in which the individual stands for prayer for a great length of time. Rather, they pray Isha and they pray the night prayer in a very light manner and a quick manner. And then following this, they pray the odd prayer, the witr prayer, and then they go to sleep. And this is such that they can wake up the next day early and make the preparations for the Eid prayer, such as having a bath, sorting their clothes out, and also so that on the day of Eid, they will be energetic and full of rigor.
وإذا أصبح المسلم صباح في يوم العيد فإنه يشرع له أن كما تقدم يصلي الفجر ثم يغتسل ويلبس أحسن لباسه ويتطيب ثم يأكل تمرات، ومن السنة أن تكون يعني بأعداد فردية وترا، 1 أو 3 أو 5 أو 7 أو 9 أو ما شاء، السنة أن تكون وترية. نعم.
So when they wake up the morning of the day of Eid, what's legislated for them is to first and foremost pray the Fajr prayer. Following this, they have a bath and then they wear the best clothes, as we have mentioned. And then following their wearing of the clothes, they then put the best scent that they have on. Following this, they then breakfast on an odd number of dates. So it can be 1, 3, 5, any number of dates, but an odd number of dates.
ثم يتهيأ لصلاة العيد. الذين تجب عليهم صلاة العيد هم الذين تجب عليهم صلاة الجمعة على القول الراجح من أقوال أهل العلم.
And then they prepare themselves for the Eid prayer. And those who have to perform the Eid prayer, they are those people who must perform the Friday prayer. And this is the most correct statement and the correct opinion of the people of knowledge.
وهؤلاء هم كل مسلم عاقل بالغ مقيم صحيح ذكر خال من الأعذار المانعة له من الحضور إلى المكان الجامع. هذا في الظروف العادية.
شيخنا الشرط الأخير
خالي من الأعذار المانعة. يعني لو كانت يعني، لكن هذا الشرط سنذكر كل شرط بمعنى.
حسنا.
أولا المسلم فهو لا يجب على الكافر حضور صلاة العيد، لأن الكافر غير مخاطب بفروع الشريعة.
So the Eid prayer is obligatory upon every Muslim who is of sound mind, who has reached an age of maturity, who is resident where they live, who is healthy, who is male, and who is free of any preventative measures that prevent them from performing the prayer.
فقولهم المسلم يخرج غير المسلم من حضور صلاة العيد.
So when we say the Muslim,
من الوجوب يعني.
When we say the Muslim, we take out from this definition those who are not Muslim. So it's not obligatory for those who are not Muslim to attend the Eid prayer.
والعاقل يخرج وجوبا المجنون أو غير العاقل، يعني يسقط عنه الوجوب.
When we say those of sound mind, this part of the definition, it takes out those who are not of sound mind. So the Eid prayer is not obligatory upon them.
والعاقل عفوا والبالغ يخرج به غير البالغ كالصغير.
When we say those who have come of age, this as a definition takes out those who have not yet reached the age of maturity, like children.
والمقيم يخرج به المسافر.
The resident, this takes out of the definition those who are traveling.
وأيضا ثم شرط وهو أن يكون من أهل الحاضرة لا من البدو الرحل.
And then there's an additional condition that they be from the people of the built-up communities. They're not from the people of, they're not like from the people of the Bedouin Arabs, from the people who live in isolation.
وتخرج أيضا النساء عموما لحديث أم عطية أنها قالت أمرنا على عهد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أن نخرج الحيض وذوات الخدور ليشهدنا دعوة المسلمين ويحضرن الخير.
And the women, it's not obligatory for women to attend the Eid prayer, and that's due to the narration of Atiyah, who said, indeed we were ordered at the time of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, to come out and witness the Eid prayer, even the young women and the women who were on their menstrual cycles.
فيستحب خروج النساء عموما، المرأة الكبيرة العجوز والشابة وحتى المرأة الحائض والنفساء يخرجن يلبسن أحسن ما عندهن ويخرجن، والتي ليس عندها لباس كما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم تلبسها أختها من جلبابها، يعني تعيرها.
ويخرجن استحبابا شيخنا هكذا؟
أي نعم، بالنسبة للنساء استحبابا، وللرجال مع الرجال محل خلاف، هل صلاة العيد هي فرض عين أم فرض كفاية أم سنة مؤكدة؟ الذي يترجح أنها فرض عين على كل مسلم قادر.
أي نعم. So we see here that it's recommended for women to come out and witness the Eid prayer, even if they are on their menstrual cycle or even if they're young women. And also when they come out, it's recommended that they wear the best of their clothes. And the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, he gave the guidance to the women who didn't have very nice clothes to borrow them, or it may be the case, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said it may be the case that her sister can lend her something to wear on that day. So that it's recommended for women to attend. As for the men, then there are various statements of the scholars. One, that it is obligatory upon each and every individual. The second, that it's obligatory upon a sufficient number so as for the prayer to take place. And the third is that it's just a recommended or a highly recommended act. And the strongest of these opinions is that it's something that is obligatory upon each and every individual from the men.
والنساء الحيض والنفساء اللائي لا تجب عليهن الصلاة يعتزلن المصلى، يكن في آخر المصلى خلف الناس، خلف صفوف النساء في الأخير، يكبرن مع الناس ويشهدن دعوة الخير.
And those women who are on their menstrual cycle or they are experiencing the postnatal bleeding, then they should attend, but they should remain afar from the place of prayer. And this is by being behind the rows of the women, which are at the back. And from that place, they will recite the takbir, the glorification of Allah that we mentioned before.
وحاليا في زمن الكورونا سيصلي الناس في بيوتهم، فكذلك الحال، الكل يغتسل ويتطيب ويلبس أحسن اللباس ويحضر إلى المكان المعد في البيت للصلاة، يكبرون التكبير المعروف، وقبل ذلك يأكلون تمرات ويكبرون، والنساء يكن في مؤخر المصلى، والحيض يكن وراء النساء غير الحيض، يعني يكن آخر الناس حتى لا يقطعن الصف إذا قامت الصلاة.
So in these times of Corona, when we're facing lockdown, it's upon the people to pray the Eid prayer in their homes. And before they do so, they should do all of the things that we've mentioned. So they should all have a bath and use perfume and break fast upon an odd number of dates. And then following this, they make the glorification that we have mentioned. And they should pray. They should go to the place in the home, which is the usual place for them to pray. And the men pray at the front, and then the women behind them. And then if there are any women who are on their menstrual cycle or have postnatal bleeding, they pray behind them so that they do not break or interrupt the connectivity of the rows.
وأيضا نعم، ومما يذكر كذلك في هذا الصدد أنه ينتظرن حتى ترتفع الشمس قيد رمح، يعني بعد ارتفاع الشمس، بعد طلوع الشمس بحوالي 15 دقيقة تكون الشمس ارتفعت قيد رمح، فيبدأون بالصلاة كما سنبين.
And then once they have done this, they should wait until the sun has risen over the horizon, the amount of about a spear. And the time for this is about 15 minutes. They should wait for about 15 minutes after the sunrise.
فإذا جاء وقت الصلاة يتقدم كبيرهم فيصلي بهم ركعتين، يكبر في الأولى تكبيرة الإحرام، ثم يقرأ دعاء الاستفتاح سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك إلى آخره، ثم بعد ذلك يكبر 6 تكبيرات، يرفع يديه يقول الله أكبر، وينتظر قليل، لا يتعجل، ينتظر قليل، يسبح يكبر بين كل تكبيرة وأخرى حتى ينتهي من ال6 تكبيرات، وهم يكبرون وراءه، يرفعون أيديهم ويكبرون. فإذا انتهى من التكبيرات شرع في قراءة الفاتحة، ثم بعد ذلك يقرأ سورة الأعلى، ثم يركع، ثم يرفع، ثم يسجد، وهكذا حتى يقوم للركعة الثانية. فإذا قام للركعة الثانية كبر تكبيرة الانتقال التي هي من الارتفاع من السجود إلى القيام، ثم كبر 4 تكبيرات، يكبر الأولى ويرفع يديه، ثم ينتظر قليلا بين التكبيرات، كذلك يكبر ويسبح بصوت غير مرتفع، ثم إذا انتهى من التكبيرات ال4 بعد تكبيرة الانتقال شرع في قراءة الفاتحة، ثم قراءة الغاشية سورة الغاشية، ثم يركع ويرفع ويسجد، وهكذا حتى ينتهي صلاته ركعتين كاملة. نعم.
And now we'll go into the explanation of how the prayer is to be carried out. And this prayer, it's a prayer that consists of 2 units of prayer, 2 rak'ah. So now the time has entered and it's time to pray. The most senior of the household should lead the prayer, should lead the people in these 2 units of prayer. And to start the prayer, they say the initial takbir, the initial Allahu Akbar, and that's what's called the glorification that enters the individual into the prayer. Then following this, they say the supplication of the opening of the prayer, Subhanak Allahumma wa bihamdik, to the end of it. Glorified be you, O Allah, to the end of this short invocation that's said. Following this, the Imam will then raise their hands up to the level of their shoulders or their ears, as Tom is doing. They raise their hands and they say Allahu Akbar again. Allah is the greatest again. And then they do this for 6 successive times. Between each time, the Imam and those behind them who also raise their hands and say Allahu Akbar, but between each time they say the glorification and the magnification of Allah, meaning that they say Subhanallah and they say Allahu Akbar, but they say it with a lowered voice. They don't say it aloud. So once they have finished all of these 6, Then the Imam will begin recitation of the opening chapter of the Quran, Surah Al-Fatiha, and after this, the Imam will recite the Surah of Allah being the Most High, Surah Al-A'la. Then following the recitation of this second chapter, they go into the bowing position, and then they raise from the bowing, and then they go into prostration, and they complete the unit of prayer as normal. Then when they stand up for the second unit of prayer, they say the takbir, and that's the saying of Allahu Akbar that moves them from the position of prostration to the position of standing. So now they are standing. Following this standing, they say Allahu Akbar, Allah is the greatest, 4 times. And again, each time they raise their hands up to the level of the ears or the shoulders, as Tom is doing, and then afterwards they wait for a few seconds where they glorify Allah by saying Subhanallah, and they declare Allah to be the greatest by saying Allahu Akbar, and so do those behind the Imam, until they have finished these 4 takbirat, the 4 statements of Allah is the greatest, and raising their hands. Following this, the Imam will recite the opening chapter of the Quran, following which he will recite Surah Al-Ghashiyah, which is the chapter that follows the previous chapter, the Most High that we have mentioned. After the Imam has completed the recitation of these 2 chapters of the Quran, they then bow in the prayer and then raise up from the prayer and go into prostration until they complete the second unit of the prayer, and the prayer will be completed as normal, and the prayer has then been completed.
هذه الصلاة ليس لها أذان ولا إقامة، لكن بمجرد أن يأتي الوقت يسوي الإمام الصفوف ويصلي.
So this prayer, it doesn't have a call to prayer which precedes it, nor does it have the shortened version of the call to prayer, the call that tells people the prayer is about to be established. Rather, once the time enters, the Imam, the one leading the prayer, will stand up and will organize the rows, and then they will begin the prayer.
وليس لهذه الصلاة سنة قبلية، يعني صلاة نافلة قبلية، ولا للمكان تحية يعني سنة، إلا إذا كان المسجد المعهود، فإنه يصلى ركعتين تحية المسجد قبل أن يجلس.
Nor is there prior to this prayer an optional prayer or a recommended prayer that is to be said beforehand, nor afterwards. And there is no prayer to be said for the place in which you're praying, except if you are praying this prayer in the masjid. If it's the case, if you are praying this in the mosque, then you would pray before it 2 units of prayer as a salutation to the mosque.
ولصلاة العيد سنة بعدية كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يحافظ عليها، كان إذا رجع من المصلى صلى ركعتين في البيت.
I made a mistake there. So there is no optional prayer beforehand, before the Eid prayer. However, after the Eid prayer, there is a recommended prayer to be said, and this is 2 units of prayer that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, would read following the Eid prayer when he reached home. So 2 units of prayer. Once he reached home, he would recite and read.
ويشرع للمسلمين بعد أن يؤدوا صلاة العيد أن يهنئوا بعضهم بعضا قائلين تقبل الله منا ومنكم.
And it's legislated and correct for the Muslims to congratulate and greet one another after the completion of the Eid prayer by saying something like, "May Allah accept from us and from you."
ولا يجوز صوم يوم العيد لأي سبب كان، قضاء أو نذرا أو نافلة، فإنه يحرم صيام يوم العيد الذي هو اليوم الأول بعد رمضان.
And it's not permissible or correct that one fasts on the day of Eid, whether it be a fast that they're making up that they have missed from Ramadan, or whether it be something that they have made an oath to do, or whether it be just an optional extra fast that they wish to do. Rather, it's not correct that they do it on the day of Eid.
ويشرع التوسعة على الأهل والأولاد في هذا اليوم، لأن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال ليعلم الناس أن في ديننا فسحة.
And it's legislated to have a good time with the family on this day, because the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said it should be known that we have a good time on this day. Words to this effect.
هذا ما تسنى يعني تذكره واستحضاره وجمعه، وأسأل الله أن لا يؤاخذني فيما قد نسيت وفاتني، وأسأله عز وجل أن يمن علينا بالقبول وبلوغ العيد، وأن يمد في حياتنا أعواما عديدة وأزمنة بعيدة، وأن يجعلنا في ذلك كله من الصالحين الطائعين المحسنين. والله أعلم، وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه.
And then our Sheikh, may Allah preserve him, he concluded with a beautiful supplication where he said, "This is that which comes to my mind when we are mentioning the rulings and the etiquettes of the Eid prayer, and I ask Allah not to take me into account for that which I may have neglected to have mentioned, and I ask him to extend our lives such that we can reach the Eid prayer and such that we can reach far extending time over this, and I ask Allah to accept, and may peace and blessings and salutations be upon our Prophet Muhammad and upon his family and companions."
I mean, we have quite a few questions. We have quite a lot of questions actually. So I'll try and breeze through them and get through them, inshallah, as quickly as possible. Are you ready?
Bismillah.
Okay. The first one is, the family who has a member who cannot make sense, do they have to give zakat al-fitr, although he didn't fast? The one who don't make sense didn't fast, does still have to give zakat al-fitr?
نعم. يا عقيل ترجم، جاي ترجم ولا حزك؟
أيوة نعم. السؤال بارك الله فيكم، هل على مثل المجنون، هل عليهم أو هل يدفع عن المجنون صدقة الفطر مراعاة أنهم لم يصوموا قطا في أثناء رمضان؟
نعم، زكاة الفطر واجبة على كل مسلم، وليس بالضرورة أن يكون قد صام رمضان، فإن المسافر الذي أفطر في رمضان أياما أو كل شهر رمضان يلزمه إخراج زكاة الفطر يوم صبيحة العيد قبل الصلاة. وكذلك المرأة التي حاضت أو نفست من أول رمضان فإنه يلزمها أن تخرج زكاة الفطر عن نفسها ولو لم تتمكن من صيام يوم واحد. وهكذا فاقد العقل بجنون أو صغر سن، يعني فاقد التكليف بصغر السن، أو فاقد العقل بجنون، أو حتى فاقد الإدراك والوعي كالذي أصيب بما يسمى بفقد الوعي ويرقد في المستشفى أو غيرها ولا يعي ولا يدري ما يكون حوله، لكنه كان مسلما قبل فقد الوعي وقبل فقد العقل، كان مسلما، أو أنه ولد مجنونا لأم وأب مسلمين فهو يعامل معاملة المسلمين، فيخرج عنه زكاة الفطر وجوبا، يخرج عنه زكاة الفطر وجوبا، وذلك طعمة للمساكين. نعم.
Yes, the response to this question is yes. The charity of the fitr, this charity is to be given on their behalf because its obligation is due upon every Muslim, and the obligation isn't due to the fact that they have fasted during Ramadan, because we find that the person who was traveling either for the entirety of Ramadan or part of Ramadan and they broke their fast during it with this excuse, it's still incumbent upon them to pay the charity of fitr. Likewise, the woman who has her menstrual cycle during Ramadan, there's a period of days in which she cannot fast. However, she must give, or the sadaqat al-fitr, the charity of fitr, it must be given on her behalf. Also, similar is the case of the woman who has postnatal bleeding. It's the case that she doesn't fast during Ramadan, but the charity of fitr must be given on her behalf or for her. So irrespective of whether a person fasts or not. And this is the same for the person who is not of sound mind. And that can be due to the fact that that their mind has gone, dementia, for example, or something like this, or due to the fact that they were born this way and that's how they are. To the extent that even people who are in a coma and they're not conscious of what's going on around them, if they were a Muslim before they fell into the coma, then the charity of fitr, the sadaqat al-fitr, it's obligatory upon them, or it's obligatory to be given on their behalf. Likewise, the person who isn't of sound mind and they are born to Muslim parents, it's obligatory upon the parents to give it on their behalf. And it's obligatory to be given on their behalf. The reason behind that is that it's a source of feeding the poor.
وهذا بإجماع أهل العلم في المذاهب الأربعة.
And this, what we have said, is by the consensus of the people of knowledge from the 4 schools of thought of Islamic jurisprudence.
قال مثلا في المذهب الحنبلي، في المذهب الحنفي، قال في كتاب الأصل لمحمد بن حسن الشيباني صاحب أبي حنيفة وتلميذه، قال: أرأيت الرجل يكون له العبد وهو مجنون مغلوب لا يفيق ولا يعقل، أيجب على مولاه في صدقة الفطر؟ قال: نعم، وكذلك الأمة. نعم.
So we see the statement in the Hanafi school of thought in the book Al-Asl, the Fundamental, which was a book by Muhammad ibn Hassan al-Shaybani, who is the companion of Abu Hanifa. He was asked, do you see the one who has a slave who is not of sound mind? Should one pay the charity of fasting upon this person or on their behalf? And he answered to this question, yes. And even if it is a female slave.
وأيضا في المذهب المالكي جاء في المدونة الكبرى قال: أرأيت من كان له عبد أعمى أو مجنون أو مجذوم أيؤدي عنهم زكاة الفطر؟ قال: نعم. قال: قلت: وهذا هو قول مالك.
And it was said in the Maliki school of thought, in Al-Mudawwanat al-Kubra, this is the book, one of the essential books in the Maliki madhab. The author was asked, should I pay the charity of Ramadan upon a slave who is not of sound mind or who is blind or has some such deficiency? And the author replied, yes, you should give it on their behalf. And this is the position of Imam Malik in this matter.
وهكذا جاء عند الشافعية كما في كتاب الحاوي الكبير، وأيضا الإمام النووي أخرج في المجموع في شرح المهذب يعني القول بوجوب ذلك. قال: ويجب أن يخرج زكاة الفطر عنهما، أي عن الطفل والمجنون، من أموالهما، يعني إن كان لهما أموال، وإلا أخرج الأب عن عن الطفل وعن المجنون.
And similar has been reported in the Shafi'i madhab, and it's been mentioned in Al-Hawi al-Kabir, which is one of their fundamental books, and also by Imam al-Nawawi in his book Al-Majmu', which is an explanation of Al-Muhadhab. It has been mentioned by both of these authors the obligation of doing so. And when we say of doing so, they're referring to the payment of the charity of Ramadan on behalf of the child and on behalf of the person who is not of sound mind. And the charity is payable from their wealth if they have wealth, and it's payable from the wealth of the person who looks after them and sees to their affairs if they have no such wealth.
وكذلك جاء عند الحنابلة كما في كتاب المغني لابن قدامة، وفي دليل الطالب لنيل المطالب، وكتاب بداية العابد، نصه قالوا ويلزم أن يخرج عن الصغير والمجنون وليهما.
And it's also been reported in the books of the Hanabila, the school of thought of Imam Ahmed. It's been mentioned in the book Al-Mughni by Ibn Qudama, and in the book Dalil al-Talib, and والكتاب الثالث شيخنا بداية الطالب.
بداية العابد.
بداية العابد, and the third book, the بداية العابد, that it's obligatory to give this wealth, to give this charity on behalf of the child and of those who are not of sound mind.
وهكذا في مذهب الظاهرية كما جاء عن ابن حزم الظاهري في كتابه في المحلى في كتابه المحلى بالآثار، قال مسألة والزكاة للفطر واجبة على المجنون إن كان له مال، لأنه ذكرا كان أو أنثى، حرا أو عبدا، صغيرا أو كبيرا. يعني يخرج عنه زكاة الفطر إن كان له مال أو وليه يخرج عنه.
And it's also been mentioned as a stance from those, or from the school of thought of the Zahiriya. And the Zahiriya, I suppose you could just, translate it like this. And it's been mentioned by Ibn Hazm, who was one of their imams in Al-Muhalla, in a famous book of his. He mentioned matter as a matter. You can pay the charity of Ramadan is obligatory to be paid on each and every individual, even if they are not of sound mind or if they're a child, and it should be paid from their wealth if they have it, whether they're male or female, old or young, and it should be paid from the wealth of the person who is responsible for them and looks after them if they have no such wealth.
نعم.
Okay. As I said, Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. We have quite a few questions, so I'll try and see.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. This one is about marriage.
Yeah.
Is an Islamic nikah carried out the same way as any other wedding? Do the both bride and groom need to be in the same room for it to be a legal nikah, or can the male ask for it to be done via video or telephone? This is something which they're confused about. And also, if it is not a legal nikah, what happens to the children when they are born into the relationship? How is this relationship perceived in the eyes of Allah? You got that, Akil?
No, have you got it written down?
Yeah, you want me to read it out again?
If you read out each part. Sorry, I got a bit distracted, something at home. If you just read out each part, I'll translate it each part bit by bit.
Is the Islamic nikah carried out the same way as any other wedding? Do both the bride and the groom need to be in the same room for it to be classed as a legal nikah?
Okay, just stop there. السؤال هل النكاح الإسلامي مثل النكاح غير الإسلامي، من حيث هل يجب أن يكون الرجل والمرأة في نفس الغرفة؟ يا جون عبد الحكيم.
Okay. Or can the male ask for it to be done via phone or video call?
أو هل يجوز أن يطلب العروس الرجل أن يكون النكاح عبر الهاتف؟
And if it's not a legal nikah, what happens to the children that are born into that relationship? How is the relationship perceived in the eyes of Allah?
So basically the marriage has taken place like distance, and then what's happened to the children, yeah?
Yeah, how the children perceived.
فإذا عقدوا النكاح هكذا أي عن بعد، كيف نعتبر الأولاد؟ أو هل يعتبر من أولادهم؟
طيب، أولا النكاح في الإسلام عبادة، والعبادات تحتاج إلى الدليل حتى تشرع. نعم.
So firstly, the marriage, the act of getting married in Islam is an act of worship, and it's something that is in need, therefore, of an evidence to prove its legitimacy.
وقد ورد الدليل، وردت الأدلة بكيف يكون النكاح في الإسلام.
And there are many evidences that indicate how the marriage ceremony should take place in al-Islam.
ومن ذلك ما جاء عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال: لا نكاح إلا بولي وشاهدين، إلا بولي وشاهدين.
And from these evidences that have come is the statement of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, that there is no marriage except for with the wali, with a guardian or protector or representative, and 2 witnesses.
فإذا اجتمع الولي والشاهدين والخاطب والمخطوبة ودفع المهر وأعلن النكاح للناس، صح النكاح، صح النكاح. إذن عندنا وجود الولي، وجود الشاهدين، شاهدي عدل مسلمين، ووجود العريس أو الخاطب، ووجود المخطوبة، والمهر والإعلان، 6 شروط. نعم.
So if the protector or if the male representative from the woman's side is there, and there are 2 witnesses, and the groom is there and the bride is there, and the bridal money has been given and the wedding has been announced and made public, then if all of these conditions have been met, then the wedding or the marriage is correct. So the conditions are the presence of the representative of the female, 2 witnesses, the 2 witnesses who are Muslim and who are good witnesses, they're just, the bride and then the groom, and then the giving of the bridal money, and then the announcement of the wedding. So these are 6 conditions.
فإذا تخلف واحد من هذه الشروط فينظر في هذا الشرط. أما تخلف الولي فلا يصح معه العقد، وتخلف الشروط لا يصح معه العقد، وتخلف أحد الزوجين أو الخاطب والمخطوبة، تخلفه من غير أن يعرف رأيه في هذا النكاح لا يصح معه العقد. وأما تخلف المهر فإذا سمي واتفق على أنه يؤدى لاحقا صح، لكن لا يصح النكاح إلا بتسمية المهر. والإعلان لا يصح النكاح، يعني يصح النكاح لكنه مخالف للسنة إذا لم يعلن يعني بين الناس، وإعلانه يكون بالإيلام، وليمة هكذا حتى يعرف الناس أن فلانا أصبح زوجا لفلانة.
So if one of these conditions are not met, then we look to this condition, and the marriage, it may be the case that it's not correct. So if, for example, the representative of the female isn't there, then the wedding and the marriage is not correct. If one of the two, the bride or the groom, are not there, and it's not known whether or not they accept this marriage, then this is a problem that undermines the correctness of the marriage contract. If the bridal money is not present, then it's something that may be agreed to be paid afterwards. This is something that's correct. If it's something that's been defined and quantified, yet they say it will be paid after the marriage contract, this is okay. But if it is not mentioned, but it's given afterwards, it can be correct, but this is not the way or the example of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. So it's not something that ruins the correctness of the contract, but it's something that's not really as it should be. And then lastly, the marriage contract should be announced. So it should be said that they've got married and they've completed the contract.
Okay, Jazakallah. Just to be clear, on the first part where he mentioned that do both bride and groom need to be in the same room, or can just the male be, or can it be done by video calls or anything like that? You're saying that,
yeah.
Did you mention?
Yeah, I see what you mean. Well, شيخنا بخصوص حضور الخاطب والمخاطب، هل يجب أن يكون في غرفة واحدة، وهل يصح إن كان من طريقة الهاتف أو الفيديو على الهاتف؟
إذا تحقق الشهود من صحة أن الطرفين كلاهما يعني قبل النكاح، وشهد الشهود بهذا، لأن الشهود لا يصح أن يشهدون بشيء لم يسمعوه ولم يروه ولا يعرفوا من المتكلم. فإذا كانوا يعني أطرافا، مثلا كان الشهود خال البنت وعمها، فهم يعرفون، فإذا قال نعم هذه ابنتنا وقالت أنها موافقة فهذا يقبل. لكن إذا لم يكونا يعرفان البنت وتكلمت امرأة من وراء الباب فهذا لا يصح، لأنه قد تكون أي امرأة تكلمت. فلا بد من التحقق من أن الخاطب والمخطوبة هما فعلا من وافق على هذا العقد، والشهود شهدوا على هذا شهادة صحيحة.
So if the witnesses can confirm that it's correct and that each of these people are who they say they are and that they freely give their consent, then this is something that's to be accepted from them, because by the nature of these witnesses is that they are just people and they wouldn't witness, or they wouldn't claim to witness something that they didn't witness. So for example, if it's the auntie of or the uncle of the bride, then they would say, yes, this is our niece who gives her consent to this marriage. As for if it's someone who doesn't know who the bride is, and the bride is behind the door and they don't see her and they don't, there's an element of ambiguity there, then this is something that's not correct.
Okay, Jazakallah. Okay then, we have got quite a few. I'll try and breeze through them. There's a question on the Sheikh. The Sheikh that the full lockdown is to be implemented in the days of Eid. How can the polygamous husbands have more than one wife living apart if they're not allowed to move from place to place, or one place to the other? Is there any harm in that? And is the husband required to stay with the other wife the whole period he stayed with the first wife while he was on lockdown with her?
أيوة شيخنا بارك الله فيكم. كيف يعمل المعدد الذي له أكثر من زوجة، إن صحت هذه الكلمة المعدد، كيف يعامل يوم العيد مع أزواجه، وهذا بالنسبة ظروفنا، حيثما أن الانتقال ممنوع بين البيوت، وكيف يعتدل بينهن في هذا الوضع؟
فاتقوا الله ما استطعتم. إذا كان منع بواسطة الحكومة أو أي سبب كان يمنع، فإن هذا لا يطالب بالعدل، لأن العدل خارج عن نطاق إرادته، لا يستطيعه، والله عز وجل لا يكلفه إلا بما يطيق. نعم.
In response to this, fear Allah as much as you are able to. If it's the case where you're prevented by the government and it's not allowed for you to go out and to travel, then you cannot be just and share your time in this respect. And this is due to something that's outside of your control. So there's nothing you can do. Fear Allah as much as you're able to.
Okay, and does he the time what he spent on lockdown with one, does he have to make up the time with the other?
والشيخنا هذا الرجل الوقت الذي مضى في أثناء هذا الحبوس أو في هذا الظرف، هل عليه قضاء هذه الأيام مع الزوجة الثانية؟
لا القضاء إنما فيما يكون اختيارا.
No, because to make up the days, this is something that's only when it's done out of choice rather than necessity.
Okay, all right, Jazakallah khairan. If a man who has more than one wife, how is he allowed? How can he finance it? Anyway, is a man who has more than one wife allowed to financially support one but not the other? And how does he perceive the actions of him favoring one wife over the other?
المعدد هل يجوز له أن يتكفل عن زوجة دون زوجة أخرى، حيث يدفع عن أحدهما عن إحداهما ولا يدفع عن الأخرى؟
لا بد من العدل، لا بد من العدل في المبيت وفي النفقة، لكن العدل في النفقة فيما يخص الزوجة نفسها، في ما ليس بضروري ولازم. مثلا زوجة مريضة تحتاج إلى علاج وأخرى ليست مريضة، فالنفقة هنا ليست كالنفقة هنا، لكن يساوي في النفقة التي ليست يعني للضرورة، يعني كالعلاج والسكن. وهذه الزوجة عندها أطفال 3 4 وهذه عندها 1، فلا يقال تدفع لها مثل ما تدفع لتلك، لأن تلك ترعى 3 أو 4 أطفال، نفقتهم غير نفقة طفل واحد، فالنفقة تقدر. المهم أنه إذا أعطى يسمونه حلوانا، يعني شيء للمرأة نفسها ليس لعلاجها ولا لمعيشة أولادها ولا لأجرة السكن الذي تسكنه، وإنما أعطاها لها تحفة، يسمونها تحفة إرضاء، يعني هكذا شيء تشتري به ما تحتاج أو ما تريد، فإن هذا يكون مساويا بين الجميع. ولا يجوز أن يعطيها لتشتري ثوبا مثلا ب100 جنيه والأخرى يعطيها تشتري ثوبا ب50 جنيه، هذا لا يجوز. نعم.
So no, it's absolutely essential that the man who has more than one wife, he is just to all of them or both of them in terms of providing their place of residence and in terms of spending upon both of them or all of them. And this is the case in those things where there isn't a an essential spend in case of emergency. So, for example, if there are two wives and one of them is sick and there are financial implications for her sickness, then the husband has to pay for these and has to settle these. But it's not said that because he paid for the sick wife, he must then pay an equivalent money to the other wife who is not sick. Rather, this is something that has come out due to necessity. Similar to this is if one of the wives has 3 kids and the other wife only has 1 kid. The amount of money that he will pay to sustain one family will be more than what he will have to pay to sustain the other family, because the expenditure of the first will be more than the expenditure of the second due to the number of children and mouths to feed, etc. So in this sense, it cannot be equal in this sense. However, for those things, when he gives them money which isn't for their necessities, that's not for their, for example, for their living, for their eating, etc., for their housing, etc., when it's money that he gives for her to spend, like I suppose kind of like a kind of allowance that he would give, this money has to be the same. So if it's money just for her, he must give them this money that's equal, and it must be the same. So, for example, if he says to one of them, here's £100 for you to buy some nice clothes, he cannot give to the other £50 and say, look, here's £50 for you to buy some nice clothes. It's a present. Rather, he has to give them both equally £100.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. Next question is, the zakat al-fitr has to be paid on children who do not belong to you and their father has responsibility over them.
Okay. هل يجب صدقة الفطر على على I got it. على أولاد الزوج، والزوج هو الذي يتكفل عن أولاده.
يعني يقصد من الذي يجب عليه؟ ما فهمت السؤال. يعني امرأة كانت مزوجة وطلقت.
لا وتزوجت. لا لعل ممكن الرجل هي متزوجة برجل له أولاد من غيرها، ويبدو من السؤال أن الرجل لا يريد أن يدفع عن أولاده، فهل عليها أن تدفع؟ لكن هذا يظهر من السؤال.
طيب أقول إذا كان السؤال عن امرأة كانت متزوجة ولها أولاد من زواج سابق وهي الآن تزوجت برجل آخر، فتسأل هل يلزم زوجها الحالي أن يخرج زكاة الفطر عن أولادها؟ الجواب لا.
So the question, if the question is that a woman has children from a previous marriage that she's now divorced from, and then she marries someone else, is it obligatory upon the new husband to pay the Ramadan charity upon those kids? The answer for this is no.
ولو كان السؤال كما ذكرت بأن الرجل عنده أولاد من زواج سابق وقد طلق، فهل تلزمه زكاة فطرهم؟ فالجواب نعم، تلزمه زكاة فطرهم كما تلزمه نفقتهم لأنهم أولاده وهو مسؤول عنهم، إلا إذا كبروا وصار لهم دخل مالي يتكسبون منه، فتكون صدقة زكاة الفطر على كل واحد له مال يكتسبه.
And then if the question is a man who has children and then he divorces the wife, the mother of those children, is it obligatory upon him to pay the Ramadan charity upon them? And the answer for this is yes. It's obligatory upon him because it's obligatory upon him to financially support these children. However, once they reach an age at which they start earning their own keep and they start earning a wage, they must then start to pay this charity upon themselves.
MashaAllah, Jazakallah Shaykh. How old does a child have to be before you pay zakat al-fitr on him? Or is it from birth?
هل تجب صدقة الفطر على الأولاد من ولادتهم؟ يعني هل هناك عمر بدائية لوجوب صدقة الفطر والنفقة عليهم؟
زكاة الفطر تجب لكل من ولد واستهل صارخا قبل غروب شمس آخر يوم من رمضان ولو بلحظات. إذا ولد قبل غروب شمس آخر يوم ولو بلحظات، خرج واستهل صارخا يعني ثبتت حياته، فإنه تجب زكاة الفطر عنه.
So the charity of Ramadan, it's obligatory upon whosoever was born, even if it was just moments before the setting of the sun on the last day of Ramadan, even if it's mere moments.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. There's someone who just wanted clarification on if a couple who got married but didn't feel the right conditions, and they lived their life together and they had a child but realized later on that their marriage was invalid, is that child still is that child still looked upon as a child born out of wedlock or in wedlock? And how do they go about it? Do they then do the proper nikah, or what do they do?
شيخنا، إذا انعقد عقد النكاح بين رجل ومرأة ومرت سنين حتى كان لديهم أولاد، وبعد السنين ظهر لهما أن نكاحهم كان فاسدا، فالسؤال الأول: هل يعتبر أولادهم من أولاد النكاح أو غير النكاح؟ وثانيا، ما الذي يجب عليهم بنسبة عقدهم؟
هذا يرجع إلى السبب في ما صار به النكاح غير سليم. هل السبب كان إهمالا منهم وعدم اتباع الشرع، وإلا بذلوا جهدهم وهذا ما تأتى لهم؟ هذا هو الذي استطاعوا، سألوا وجدوا أن هذا الأمر هو الصواب. هذا يسمى وطء شبهة، يعني ما كانوا يعرفون أن هذا غير صحيح، ظنوا أن هذا صحيح. فإن كانت يعني أسباب المعرفة موجودة وهم تجاهلوها عمدا أو لم يبحثوا عنها أصلا، فإن هذا مسؤوليتهم، ويكون الزواج فاسدا والأولاد لا تصح نسبتهم إلى أبيهم. أما إذا بذلوا وظنوا أن هذا هو الصواب ولا يوجد عندهم من يصوب لهم، وسألوا من يظنون أنه عنده العلم وقال لهم بأن هذا صحيح، فهذا يسمى وطء شبهة. فالعقد فاسد والأبناء شرعيون، الأبناء أبناء الرجل والعقد فاسد. الذي ينبغي عليهم فعله هو أن يصححوا العقد ويستمر الزواج، والأولاد أولادهم جميعا ولا حرج في ذلك.
وشيخنا، بكل مسألتين يسمى وطء الشبهة هكذا؟
لا، وطء الشبهة إذا كانوا لا يعلمون. مثلا واحد تزوج بامرأة وهو لا يعلم أنها أخت له من الرضاع، بعدما تزوج بسنين جاءت أمها أو أمه أو المرضعة قالت أنا أرضعتكما سويا، فهنا هذا يفرق بينهما لأنه بينهما أخوة، لكن يبقى الأولاد أولاده باسمه.
أيوة.
لو أنهم مثلا في بريطانيا وهما مسلمين جدد ما يعرفان الدين الإسلامي، سألوا إماما أو شخصا ظنوه صاحب علم عنده لحية، كما يظن الناس كأكثر الناس اليوم أي واحد عنده لحية هو ابن تيمية، فيسألونه فقال لهم نعم هذا صحيح والزواج صحيح وكذا، وتزوجوا هم يريدون نيتهم يريدون الصواب، لكن هذا الذي حصل لهم، فهنا يكون هذا وطء شبهة. يصح نسبة الأولاد للأب، ولكن يبقى عليهم الافتراق إلى أن يصححوا العقد. لا يجوز أن يطأها منذ أن علم حتى يصححوا العقد، فإذا صححوا العقد جاز لهم الرجوع إلى بعض، والأبناء يستمرون أبناء الزوج والزوجة.
Barakallahu fikum. So, in reference to this, we must return and refer to the reason why the marriage contract is not correct. Is it due to complacency on their part, or did they try and expend every effort in having a correct marriage, yet it came about years later that there was some sort of issue or problem in it? And this type of marriage, where there is an issue in it that comes about after a number of years, is called the marriage of doubts, or the doubtful marriage. And if it's the case that they were complacent in the conditions of the marriage, then their marriage is annulled. It's not correct, and the children, they aren't correctly ascribed to them as children of wedlock. However, if the couple at the time, they asked the people who they deemed to be people of knowledge, and they expended all of their efforts to have the marriage done correctly, yet for some reason there was an issue, then the contract is still not correct, but the children are ascribed to them. And what they should do, they should then renew, or they should then go back and correct the marriage contract. And this is, so this happens. So for example, it may be the case that there are new Muslims, two new Muslims who wish to get married, and they ask someone who they think to be an imam or a scholar of the religion. So they go to someone, for example, who has a beard, and they think that everyone who has a beard is like Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, who can give religious verdicts, etc. And this person, they think, has knowledge, gives them advice to do and carry out the contract in such and such a manner. And then years afterwards, it becomes apparent that they weren't given the correct advice and that the marriage wasn't correct. In this case, then they should renew or correct the marriage contract. However, the children remain theirs and are ascribed to them. But in this intermediary period where they have found out that there was an issue with their contract, and then between that and the period that they get their marriage contract sorted out, it's not permissible for them to live as husband and wife. Once they are aware of the situation, they must separate until they rectify the marriage.
متى تفطرون يا شيخ عقيل؟
لعل 10 دقائق إن شاء الله شيخنا.
عبد الحكيم, 10 minutes for your iftar.
Yes, we've got through the questions, alhamdulillah. We got through the questions, so we're going to call it a day for today. Jazakallah khairan, Sheikh. Thank you, and Akil, Jazakallah khairan, and we'll see you tomorrow, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair. Abdul Hakim, do you want to mention the fundraising?
Oh, right. Okay. This is why, mashallah, Akil's the wingman.
Alhamdulillah.
Okay. We're collecting this week for deaf children's programs. You can visit islamfordeaf.co.uk or .com and go to the kids page to see the videos that we're doing for deaf children. We're going to be continuing that with Quran stories and Islamic fun programs for deaf children, going into sciences as well as wildlife. This is something which hasn't been, to my knowledge, we have very little of, if any at all, in regards to curriculum activities for deaf children. This is something which is needed in the deaf Muslim community, and alhamdulillah, Allah has given us the platform and the ability, alhamdulillah, and the drive to do it. So we ask people to donate towards it, inshallah. Jazakallah khair, may Allah accept it, may Allah reward you for it. Also support the Islam for Deaf cause in providing Islamic education for all Muslims globally, inshallah. So again, thank you, Zaki. MashaAllah, may Allah reward you. Thank you, Sheikh Mohammed and Malik, who's the pillar.
You still now, how long you know me, Abdul Hakim?
Huh?
How long you know me?
What, 3 years? 2-3 years?
No, more than 2, maybe 3, more than 3.
3-4
But
years.
you still calling me wrongly. You still call Muhammad al-Malik. It's
Okay.
al-Maliki.
Oh. Sheikh Muhammad al-Maliki, mashallah.
Al-Maliki. Remember the key, always the key. I am the key. Al-Maliki.
Okay, mashallah.
And in Arabic, al-mal, let me tell you something. Al-mal means the money. I am the money key.
Okay, mashallah.
MashaAllah.
Jazakallah khair for
Barakallah feekum. Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much.
Okay,
جزاكم
Jazakallah.
جزاك الله خير. Zaki, جزاك الله خير.
الله يعطيكم العافيه.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
يا مرحبا.